Good morning. Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 27th day of August 2024. In studio I have Wakili Steve Ogola. Good morning, Wakili. I have former president of the Law Society of Kenya, Nelson Harvey. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
Kevin Osido. Good morning.
Good morning to you too.
Executive Director, Counties Watch.
Sure.
And I have Mheshimiwa Mugaka. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the invite.
Great. It's been a long time we haven't seen you, but karibu sana. As you talk about the state of the Constitution, the implementation has gone, and of course taking stock of the gains that have been made, looking at what challenges exist. But before you get there, you see that on the main stories of the Daily Nation and the Standard, you're talking about the Standard man of the moment. This is Raila Odinga. William Ruto is today expected to officially launch Raila Odinga's AUC bid at State House, with at least 4 African presidents expected to attend. This marks a significant milestone in the political life of Raila, as it cements his stature as an African statesman. And on the front page of the Standard, you'll see that it's a standoff. Primary schools record low turnout of a cancelled strike. And of course, Kupet went on with the strike, and you can see the images of the protests that were, as well as a statement there, which will be talking about that NYS recruits will be trained on handling firearms. And the president was speaking about the need to ensure that they are ready to defend the country should the need arise. Let me quickly take your views on the expected unveiling of candidate Raila Odinga for the African Union Commission chairmanship. Mheshimiwa Mugaka, let me begin with you on what you think lies ahead for Raila Odinga, especially in clinching that seat, because we can do so much locally here, but the campaign on the continent is what is going to determine whether he clinches or not.
I think it's a good thing to do. And previously, Kenya's international rating perceptibly was fairly okay, and that quite counts in our efforts to lobby other countries that would support us. But lately, following what you and I know, our international appearance got a bit beaten. And therefore, our rating as a model of democracy was a bit battered. And therefore, we will have to struggle as we push the bid for Baba to go to the international market. Right. But as a brand, Raila still stands out as an African statesman. What I don't know is what his serial handshakes with whatever government that he has gone to elections with and lost and serially gotten into government. I don't know whether that will count or not, but as a country, this is a very, very important assignment, and our achievement as a country in securing that position would quite boost our image in the International Committee of Nations.
Okay, interesting. Kevin, what are your thoughts, and what does this mean for the country?
Thank you so much, Sam, and for the invitation. What this means for the country is that we really need to work hard in terms of, one, securing the gains that Kenya has made globally. And indeed, there are lots of milestones that Kenya as a country has helped Africa and the world to gain, ranging from security, peace building, governance and leadership indices that border on leadership, and really even the opportunity that we have had to stand strong for our neighbors, South Sudan, Somalia, and many, many others, even closer home. Number two is indeed the image that Kenya bears regionally, and I think that looking at the kind of transitions that have taken place, particularly at the AUC, the African Union Commission, where Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga is being seconded as a candidate of the Republic of Kenya. What does this really mean to us, particularly looking at the gains that have been made locally and therefore lessons that other countries can be able to learn. I think that that is purely why His Excellency the President, ceteris paribus, all the other issues, including the handshakes, what this means for local politics and political parties and everything. But I believe that the President is very keen to accrue certain gains from particularly the win of Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga. Whether he wins or not is one thing that we seek to see when February 2025 gets here, because the third thing is that we know that Kenyans have very many different opinions around how this candidature was born, birthed, and even is being propelled, and especially given the kind of protests that we have seen. And so if you look at certain social media spaces, particularly on X, you see very many people, a number of, particularly the youth, the Gen Z, the Gen Z is actually speaking very, they are bringing up images and narratives that the government should not, in my view, take for granted. Not to mention that they don't vote, but of course we know who votes, the Council of Ministers. But whatever thing is posted over there, and the globe is reading and is watching, without necessarily being keen to look at issues around mis and disinformation and propaganda. And so the government needs to be very keen in terms of packaging the communication around the Kenyan candidate, and really how that packaging is being carried and communicated out there. Right. Actually, I don't think I want to comment on that, because we know that with the exit of Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, very many handshakes are going to fall. The people who depend on him for their hands to be lifted up, as Sam Tosha, Kevin Osido Tosha, Harvey Tosha, I think those are people who are going to lose from this particular process, and it's going to open a new slate and a new space. I hope
those are just for illustration purposes then.
Yes, of course. But you know that Mheshimiwa Harvey has run before.
Okay. All right. So, Wakili Harvey.
I don't want to be associated with the term Mheshimiwa, because most who carry that title don't have any Heshima.
That's why I actually dropped it, because Wakili Harvey. So talk to us about at the AUC, the last time we made an attempt of Amina, she came so close, yet so far from the seat, up to the last round. I think there were 7 rounds or so to elect the exiting chairperson of the AU Commission. What must we do right this time round, knowing that there is also the division between Francophone versus Anglophone on the continent?
Well, first and foremost, I want to wish Baba the very best in this contest. He has been a good statesman in Kenya. It is now a high opportunity for him to be a statesman in Africa. But fundamentally, and what most people may not realize, there is a deliberate attempt to remove Raila Odinga from the political environment in Kenya, which may be good, because for almost 5 electoral cycles, he's been the second alternative. It is high time that in Kenya we had new blood to offer an alternative form of leadership at the helm of the presidency in Kenya.
Just that?
Just that.
Okay. And for you, Wakili, what are your thoughts and chances of success?
I think it's the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is reputed to be an intensely pro-democracy leader. I think his contribution in our democratic maturity is well recorded, and I think it's appreciated locally. And just to develop the point that Mheshimiwa said, the handshakes, Kenyans may not realize it, but it has a particular international appeal. It lends him the kind of legitimacy he needs as he aims now for the AU chairmanship, because in the region and in the global south, political stability is an important imperative for good governance. And the fact that fierce political rivals can build consensus quickly after an election and have handshakes, while locally we may protest, but internationally that is seen as an act of statesmanship, Pan-Africanism. And Raila also brings his own deep political infrastructure across the region, something that perhaps Mheshimiwa Amina did not have. He has his own international appeal. He has deep networks across Africa and the globe. And I think he's capable of sustaining his own campaign for this AU chairmanship, even without the support of government. But because this must be a government-sponsored project, I think it's refreshing to see Kenyans uniting, to push for his bid. I think he has a decent shot. Chances are he may just get it. And we do wish him the very best.
Okay. All right. So we'll wait for that event. I think it should begin at 8 a.m. based on the invite from State House. And you are told that a few presidents from the region will be in attendance. We'll wait to see how that goes. And of course, you'll be looking at the process itself that will culminate in voting come early next year. Now, I want us to transition to the Constitution at 14. And of course, so much has happened. Let me begin with you, Kevin. What do you think should be our reflection this morning? Because just yesterday we saw a group of young people saying that they are going to be on the streets today to say that the Constitution has not been implemented as it should. What is your appreciation or your praise of the Constitution and its implementation over these years?
The Constitution of Kenya, and I brought you a gift to studio. I hope that is not beyond the copyright manenos. The copy of the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Yeah.
The Wakili and the two Wakilis and Mheshimiwa don't need a copy. I'm sure they make reference to it every day.
We're the working Constitution.
Let me just say it's a copy of the Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
For anyone thinks that it's something else.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it's a gift to the show, right?
Yeah, precisely.
Okay, carry on.
But at least someone has to carry it, and that someone happens to be you this morning. So in appreciating the efforts that we have made is indeed looking at the gains. And one of those gains, in my view, is to look at particularly the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of Kenya. But even before then is to look at Article 1.1 that really gives sovereign power to the people. And we have seen since 2010, particularly coining it around electoral cycles or elections in Kenya, we have seen citizens coming out to be able to be very bold, to ask questions, to hold government accountable, and really to look at what they can be able to do in partnership with their governments, and that is the national government and also the 47 county governments. Number two, Sam, is to really look at the ongoing conversation around, of course, as you rightfully said, Kenyans who want to demonstrate around the lack of effective implementation of the Constitution of Kenya. And then beyond that is also to look at the kind of conversations that are currently taking place. Particularly, I heard the CS nominee and now CS saying that this Constitution is very expensive. Now, we need to look at a mechanism to audit the implementation of the Constitution of Kenya. And in looking at that particular audit, is to not just look at the expensive nature of the Constitution, but indeed even the degree to which Kenyans can be able to defend, uphold, and really protect the Constitution. And so in narrowing it down is also to look at how this Constitution has been used to protect the rights of Kenyans. And that is purely around looking at police engagement with citizens, public officers and state officers in protecting and defending the Constitution, which in a number of areas we have not seen very effective protection of the Constitution. We have seen heavy loads of impunities that have been attached to the implementation of the Constitution, to the level of even denying certain constitutional officers resources to be able to do their work or stifling those resources. And particularly we have seen, for instance, the judiciary and the Supreme Court Chief Justice herself coming out to say in the past or in a few weeks past, saying that we need to be supported to be able to do our work. And President William Ruto, I believe, has been quite progressive in terms of speaking on what he needs to do or what his government is doing to be able to protect the Constitution. But in reality, a number of instances, we have not seen that spirit and that goodwill to be able to protect and defend the Constitution, all the way to Chapter 11 that talks about devolution and the challenges between national government and county governments insofar as protecting the Constitution. To implement devolution as really an aspiration and the dream of Kenyans to be able to see the Constitution living for them. All the way to Chapter 12, so I'm talking about public finance management and the degree of misuse, corruption issues, mismanagement of funds. And so it is important for us to, even as we talk about the Constitution of Kenya 14 years down the line, indeed, what are these gains? We have made several gains, but then the challenges and the missteps and the gaps are actually, in my view, outweighing, and they therefore overcome the gains that we have made.
Mheshimiwa Stephen, are you persuaded that the misses outweigh the gains, or what is your appreciation of that?
I don't have a very good weighing scale, but in most cases, we never celebrate the gains or the good in achieving what is in our constitution. Our worries are more on the misses, because the architecture of this constitution is such that any one miss is a disaster for the republic. And as my president would always say, an injustice to one citizen should be an injustice to all citizens. And therefore, given this very good architecture of our constitution that protects everybody, that assures everybody, I don't see why we should have any misses. And that therefore really puts the question our fidelity to the Constitution, our faithfulness to the Constitution, that whereas the Constitution protects all of us, assures all of us, those of us who are actors, particularly in the three arms of government, are the people who laid the country down, who laid the Constitution down, who embarrass the Constitution, and therefore that therein lies our biggest challenge and our biggest problem. That whereas everybody in the three arms of government assumes office using the Constitution and indeed swear to defend that Constitution, surprisingly, it is us again in those three arms of the government who are the first Judases, the first Petrus, denying and embarrassing the very instrument that has given us ascendancy to those positions. And therefore, as I don't think celebrate is the correct word, as we observe this Katiba Day, it is a very critical moment to take stock of how faithful we have been in being faithful to this very document, the mother of all laws, that makes this republic, that assures everybody's rights in this republic. How faithful have we been, and how much intolerance should we show to anybody who violates this constitution? And going back to the Baba story, I want to celebrate the young persons of this country, because those of us in politics thought that without Baba we will not have forces that will stand up whenever there is a threat to violation of the Constitution. I celebrate the young persons of Kenya, Gen Zs, because they have lived up to Article 3 of the Constitution, which calls upon every citizen to rise up and defend the Constitution. And really, this is a very good development in this republic. How I wish that all of us stood and lived true to the national anthem that we sing, and rise up to defend the Constitution whenever there is a threat, whenever there is a violation of rights against any single individual. It should be every Kenyan's business to ensure that they rise up and defend that violation of that right. And if we did that, I'm telling you, this country would be a heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth. Wakili Havi, help us walk through that journey of 14 years and what you think has been one of the biggest challenges in realizing the Constitution in its totality, but also even as he says that we should not be celebrating the gains but paying more focus on the challenges, still there has been change in those 14 years. What is your take?
Yes, tremendous change. Look, at 14 years, Kenyans are able to evaluate the performance of the leaders insofar as protecting the Constitution is concerned. Illustrative with the cartoon by Gamze on the Standard today. You can see a bright and happy President Mwai Kibaki holding the Constitution confidently, with a Kenyan carrying him on his shoulders. They are happy. They are moving. Today, 14 years later, you can see a burdened Kenyan crying on the weight of implementation with a stern-faced rider on top of him. It speaks a lot. One thing that we must underscore is the determination of the Kenyan people to demand the enforcement of the Bill of Rights, to demand compliance with the Constitution. What has been the part of the government itself, the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive? In my evaluation, of the three arms of government, the judiciary has played the biggest role in ensuring that the Constitution is enforced, in ensuring that the Bill of Rights is implemented. Parliament has been a big failure because it has failed to oversight the executive in many ways. Look at the appointment of cabinet secretaries a few weeks ago. These appointments were unconstitutional. They were illegal. Why do we need to wait for the court to make a determination? At the beginning of the implementation of this constitution, when President Mwai Kibaki attempted unilaterally to appoint the Chief Justice, to appoint the Attorney General, to appoint the DPP, courts came in and said no. It didn't even wait for us to go through the full hog of the determination of the process. Parliament also put a halt onto it. And obedient as he was, President Mwai Kibaki never ever repeated a violation of the Constitution. What about President Uhuru Kenyatta? He scored D. President Uhuru Kenyatta never obeyed the Constitution, never upheld the rule of law, never obeyed court orders. In fact, President Uhuru Kenyatta failed more than 4 times to comply with court orders for the appointment of judges. How has President Uhuru Kenyatta fared on? Recent events, President William Ruto fared on. Recent events also show that there is much that you can do, because much as the scorecard for Uhuru Kenyatta was a D upon completion, President William Ruto also has a D in the continuous assessment. And this is something that Kenyans must look at with keen interest, because, and let me just isolate a few items. Let's start with Chapter 6 on integrity and good governance, leadership. Why is it that we have cabinet secretaries who have been dismissed being put back into office? That's the question. Why do we have individuals who face serious crimes, investigations, or even pending court cases in office? Let us give some little credit to Uhuru Kenyatta. When some of his ministers were mentioned in corruption scandals, they were let go. Same with President Mwai Kibaki. Is it happening now? I don't think so. What about public finance? Every day we have this rallying call that we're going to deploy austerity measures. We're going to ensure that the people of Kenya get good value for their money. Is that the case? Are we reducing the number of advisors? Are we reducing public debt? Are we concentrating on what is good for the Kenyans? What about Chapter 10, good governance? I don't think we have good governance. There is a big problem. Okay. And to cap it all, when it comes to implementation, we have time and again insisted that the president must dissolve parliament. And parliament must be dissolved because parliament has failed in its major role of legislation. And that is the reason why we have problem with bills that are passed through Parliament day after day. All of them are being declared null and void. What is the problem, my friend Mogaka? Is there a failure of good learning amongst our colleagues? And it's quite unfortunate because the current Parliament has the highest number of lawyers. There is a problem.
All right. You meant Article 10, not Chapter 10?
Yeah, Article 10, not Chapter 10.
Okay. Wakili, we're still at the start of the conversation just before we take the break. Your quick analysis or appreciation of what has happened in those 14 years?
I think some we've done fairly well, if you ask me. The Constitution rests on 4 pillars. Let's assess how these pillars have been tested. First of all, the architecture itself of the Constitution has largely been preserved. That's a very important pillar. And the president here was in the forefront in 2020, battling against the BBI constitutional amendment maneuvers. The fact that we were not able, the fact that we fought off successfully efforts to mutilate the Constitution or to undermine its architecture is a good thing. The second pillar, which is a robust, independent and functional judiciary, I think 14 years later, by and large, the judiciary has done an excellent job, particularly the High Court. So I think that needs to be celebrated as well.
Yeah.
If you look at the third pillar, which is public vigilance, most recently you've seen active citizens, those calling themselves Gen Zs, and previously we've had the political opposition mobilizing, and activists mobilizing each other and, various sectors to come and demand accountability. The Constitution also presupposes that a vigilant public will support its implementation. I think in the last 14 years, we've done fairly well in demanding and forcing accountability. The last point, which is political goodwill, and I think President Harvey's challenges that, but there's also another lens to it. Yeah? Look at the events following the 2022 general election. The fact that there was peaceful transfer of power, I think it deserves mention and celebration because the incumbent at that time, President Uhuru Kenyatta, had a preferred candidate. And he transferred that power to someone he didn't think was deserving. I think we can't undermine, we can't ignore that. Look at the reaction by the political opposition to the election of William Ruto. The fact that we went to court and not to the streets, I think is worth mention. Look at the bindingness and the acceptability of the Supreme Court decision on the outcome of the election. Yes, there are a bit of turmoil and rejection, but ultimately, is it not refreshing some to see His Excellency, the right former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, addressing William Ruto as the president? After these results were audited at the Supreme Court, which was fiercely fought, and now he has accepted the results. That's a good thing. Look at the reaction by citizens when the cost of living soared up. They went the streets instead of protesting online. Initially we saw the likes of David Ndii saying, there's a term he used which I can't recall, but which is just basically dismissing online campaigners for accountability. But the fact that young people and citizens and alternative voices came out and forced accountability is a good thing. And the fact that the political leadership, the president withdrew the finance bill, for instance, I think is also a good thing because it shows that at the very minimum, he's responsive to political pressure. So by and large, I think we're making progress.
Right.
And I think we just need to continue deepening that accountability while paying attention to the need to consolidate. What I think I agree with Mheshimiwa is we need to pay attention not to lose the gains that we have consolidated. I think there's still a disturbing pattern of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances. There is a pattern of disrespect of court orders, non-compliance with human rights standards. There's just a pattern of wastage and pilferage of public resources. I think these ones, we didn't anticipate in post-2010 dispensation that the momentum towards impunity would still be surprisingly high.
Yeah.
But that's what we're supposed to debate.
Okay.
But going forward, by and large, I would the president gives the government a D, I think that plays it at a C+, right in the middle.
Okay. Well, I think after the analysis, we'll take another call for grading. But we're taking a short break here. When we come back, we'll be diving deeper into the conversation, looking at the institutions established by the Constitution, looking at various provisions of it, whether it comes to the justice sector, whether it's in matters devolution, the integrity test that has been put in the Constitution, and how well we have fared and what needs to be done. Stay tuned for that. You can also send in your questions via Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag to use is Citizen Daybreak and at Sam Gituku. Stay tuned.